What happens when we die? The fundamental question of human existence. For centuries, the answer belonged to faith and philosophy. But today, science is exploring one of the deepest and most mysterious experiences a human being can live: the near-death experience. These experiences are not simple dreams or hallucinations. They are vivid, structured, and often transformative accounts from millions of people around the world who have found themselves on the threshold between life and death and have come back to tell about it. But what do these experiences tell us about the nature of consciousness and our own reality? In this video, we will analyze them in a detailed and scientific way. We will explore what conventional science says, what its limits are, and we will venture into alternative hypotheses, always maintaining a critical and fact-based approach. If you are fascinated by the great mysteries of science and consciousness and want to support my work, I ask you to subscribe to the channel and activate the bell. This will help us create more content like this. And now, let's start. Near-death experiences are profound psychological events that occur in people close to death or in situations of severe physical or emotional danger, such as cardiac arrest. The term was coined in 1975 by physician and philosopher Raymond Moody. In his revolutionary book, Life After Life, Moody analyzed more than 100 cases of testimonies from people who had been declared clinically dead and then resuscitated, and who recounted their experience. But be careful, this is not a modern phenomenon. Similar accounts can be found in folklore and writings of countless cultures throughout history, long before the advent of modern resuscitation techniques, and they are not rare. Prospective studies indicate that they are reported by 10 to 20% of people who have approached death. It is estimated that millions of people in the Western world alone have had a similar experience. But what exactly do these people experience? Despite cultural and personal differences, a surprisingly common core of characteristics emerges. Among the most recurring testimonies, we find an overwhelming and indescribable sensation, a sense of profound peace, completely free from physical pain and emotional suffering. This peace is described as something that goes beyond any earthly experience, a state of absolute serenity that many define as impossible to experience during normal life. After this initial sensation, many report having experienced what is called an out-of-body experience, a phenomenon in which consciousness seems to completely separate from the physical body. During these moments, witnesses claim to be able to observe themselves from the outside, often from above, seeing their own body lying down. They describe precise details of conversations and medical procedures that occurred while they were clinically dead, details that later often turn out to be accurate. During the out-of-body experience, the vast majority of witnesses also describe a journey through a kind of tunnel towards an intense and welcoming light. Many witnesses also report encountering luminous presences, which they describe as beings of pure light, guides, or deceased loved ones. Some also describe a moment when they have a panoramic and instantaneous vision of their entire existence, where every action, thought, and emotion is relived in an incredibly vivid way. The culminating moment then comes when the person returns to their body. This moment is often described as the most difficult of the entire experience, an abrupt return to the reality of physical pain and human limitations. However, one often returns with a completely transformed perspective on life, death, and the meaning of existence. A crucial aspect is that, although the interpretation of these events is influenced by a person's culture, the basic structure of the experience remains constant, regardless of the country of origin, social background, or individual experience. This raises a fundamental question. Are we talking about a purely cerebral phenomenon or something else? The scientific community has proposed various explanations to frame these experiences within known neurological and psychological mechanisms. One of these is that the lack of oxygen causes neurons to turn off in a disordered way, creating anomalous electrical discharges, which could generate very vivid visual hallucinations. Furthermore, it is assumed that in these conditions, the brain releases a very powerful cocktail of chemicals, creating an intensely pleasant experience that can seem supernatural. Furthermore, the role of the temporal lobe has been considered. This represents the hard drive of our brain, where memories are stored and the sense of time is managed. When this area is artificially stimulated, patients report feeling out of body and losing their perception of time. This would seem to indicate that these phenomena could have a neurological origin. From a psychological point of view, depersonalization or confabulation has been proposed, i.e., the brain's tendency to construct a false memory to fill a void. These explanations are certainly important and offer valid insights, but they face significant challenges in explaining the totality of the phenomenon. The main criticism concerns the lucidity and complexity of thought reported in conditions of severe cerebral impairment. Furthermore, no direct and unambiguous correlations have been found between specific physiological states and all the characteristics of near-death experiences. Perhaps the biggest obstacle for conventional theories is the so-called veridical observations. There are accounts of people who, during out-of-body experiences, have described events later verified, which they could not have known. This anomalous information retrieval is not easily explained by current knowledge of brain function. These gaps and anomalies have led some researchers to explore alternative hypotheses. It is fundamental to emphasize that these interpretations are outside conventional science, are not proven, and represent a different approach to try to make sense of data that the current model struggles to explain. The most known hypothesis in this field is that of non-local consciousness. It suggests that consciousness is not a product of the brain, but that the brain acts as a transceiver. Imagine the brain as a sophisticated biological antenna. Just as a radio does not produce the music we listen to, but could function as a receiver that tunes into existing consciousness frequencies in a non-physical dimension. It's a fascinating idea, but it's important to clarify that this remains a theoretical interpretation, not a scientifically proven fact. Supporting this model are some cutting-edge physics theories, such as the Hameroff-Penrose quantum model, which proposes that consciousness emerges from quantum processes occurring in microtubules, microscopic structures within neurons. According to this hypothesis, microtubules would function as biological quantum computers, capable of maintaining quantum superposition states and processing information in a non-classical way. During extreme events, these quantum processes could free themselves from ordinary physical constraints, allowing consciousness to access levels of reality normally inaccessible. Also noteworthy are some theories that converge on a surprising point. Space and time could be illusions generated by consciousness, offering a revolutionary view of near-death experiences. Robert Lanza's biocentrism states that consciousness creates reality, and that space and time are mental constructs. The theory of the holographic universe suggests that every moment of our life is encoded in the universe and accessible simultaneously, like in a hologram. Finally, according to Federico Fagan, consciousness is the internal aspect of reality, and in these experiences, it can reunite with the whole, explaining the sensation of union and absolute knowledge. Again, these are still speculative theories that are not better explanations, but an attempt to use a different language to address the mystery. Fascinating theories, but science requires evidence. And so it is right to ask, what do clinical studies say? The most well-known studies on near-death experiences are the AWARE studies, conducted by critical care physician Sam Parnia. Their goal? To understand if consciousness can persist even after clinical death. The first study, AWARE-1, collected over 2,000 cases of cardiac arrest. About 40% of survivors reported forms of awareness during resuscitation, and one of them accurately described an auditory event that actually happened while their heart had stopped. The second study, Aware 2, went a step further. It monitored patients during cardiac arrest and recorded surprising data, including complex brain activities. Some patients reported out-of-body experiences. One said they saw the room. Others heard sounds and voices. Only one case recognized a sound stimulus recorded during resuscitation, but no one correctly identified hidden visual images. This does not prove that consciousness leaves the body, but it does show that the brain can show intense and organized activity even tens of minutes after the heart stops. And that, in some cases, the mind still seems capable of perceiving. According to Parnia, these experiences could reflect a temporary access to a deeper reality, a fascinating hypothesis, but still to be proven. A final and fascinating connection leads us to an equally complex field of research, that of reincarnation. The Division of Perceptual Studies at the University of Virginia has collected over 2,500 cases of children who claim to remember past lives, often with verifiable details. The connection with near-death experiences lies in some similarities between the descriptions of between-life memories and those of these experiences. The field of research on the reincarnation hypothesis is vast and deserves a separate in-depth analysis. If you are curious to learn more about the scientific investigation of past life memories, I have made a dedicated video that you can find linked above. And now, in conclusion, we can say that research faces enormous challenges. The reliability of memories, the difficulty of obtaining objective evidence, and the subjective nature of the experience. But the future, with new technologies and more rigorous protocols, is promising. The scientific analysis of near-death experiences shows us an open and evolving debate. To date, there is no consensus in the scientific community. On the one hand, conventional explanations are rooted in the science we know, but they fail to satisfactorily explain all aspects of the phenomenon. On the other hand, post-materialist hypotheses offer a framework for anomalies, but lack strong evidence and remain, for now, in the realm of speculation. Neither side has a definitive answer. These experiences still remain an enigma, but their persistence and coherence tell us that they deserve rigorous, secular, and open-minded scientific investigation. Perhaps they are not simply brain tricks or hallucinations. Perhaps they are exactly what they seem to be, a profound human experience that pushes us to question the limits of our knowledge. The research continues, and the answer, whatever it may be, promises to enrich our understanding of what it means to be alive. And what do you think? Which line of research do you find most promising? Write it respectfully in the comments below, and it would be an honor if someone who has had a similar experience would like to share it with the community, always with the utmost respect. If you enjoyed this journey to the frontiers of science, leave a like, share the video, and don't forget to subscribe so you don't miss the next explorations. Thanks for watching.